Welcome to Ask a Daddy. I am Brian B. Childs, and today I want to talk about race and our children. Now, there are 5 essential things that I think we need to talk about when it comes to teaching our children about race. However, before I get into those 5 things, I want to share with you a quick personal story. Let me grab my personal story sweater. Personal story sweater. Now, I have well over 12 years of experience working with kids. And back when I was 19, one of my first experiences dealing with racism in children happened. As a matter of fact, it was the very first experience I ever encountered while working with a child and trying to help a child deal with something that happened to them. And what happened was I was working at a after-school program, and I would go pick up the kids from the bus, take them to the center, and then we would do activities and so on and so forth. Well, this particular day, one of my kids got off the bus, and, they were just crying. I mean, oh, Mr. Charles. And, I was working there for a while, so I had great relationships with all of these children. And, seeing one of them cry, just like with anybody, you're like, man, who did it? Where they're at? Where are they at? Where are their parents? Where's the parents? What's going on? There's the bus driver. Let's work this out. Well, talking to the child, and finally getting her to calm down, she said, well, my friend said I can't sit by them on the bus anymore. And so immediately I'm like, oh, okay, this is that little kid stuff, whatever, to blow over. But I asked her, well, how come she doesn't want you to sit by her on the bus anymore? And this is when she told me, she said, well, it's because I'm black. And I said, well, hold on now, what do you mean? What happened? Tell me what happened. Well, Mr. Childs, she told me she can't be my friend anymore because I'm black and that I can't sit next to her on the bus. And that completely threw me off because I wasn't expecting it. So while trying to address this situation, I tried to find any frame of reference that I could use to talk to her. And so, I asked her, has she heard about Martin Luther King or Rosa Parks or, anything of that nature. And she had not heard of that stuff yet. I think she might have been in the 2nd grade, maybe 3rd. And again, maybe you start covering that stuff then, but kids aren't paying attention, or maybe she just hasn't learned about it, or she didn't really connect the dots. But long story short, I didn't have a frame of reference. And so, basically I just told her, I said, well, some people kind of feel like that, but I'm sure, in a couple of days, you and her will be fine. You guys will be friends again, and, so on and so forth. And that was the first time that I had to deal with working with a child who experienced, some form of racism. And it's amazing to me that it started so early, but it's something that kind of shaped the way in which I've worked with children from that point on. The purpose of me sharing that story is just to, help point out how early our kids are being exposed to this frame of thinking and what we as parents need to be doing in order to make sure that our children are prepared and are equipped to handle facing this type of situation in the most positive way. So, without further ado, my 5 steps. Step number 1. When dealing with your kids, make sure that you acknowledge that there are differences. That's one of the first things that, that we start working with our children on, the differences in shapes and colors and everything else, right? So when they notice that there's a difference in people, don't sweep that under the rug and be like, oh, no, don't say that. Oh, don't notice that. You know what I mean? Use that time as a teachable moment. Acknowledge and teach your kids that, yeah, there are differences, right? There's, different colored people, different cultures, different races, everything. And take the time to kind of explain those differences. Step number 2, go ahead on and talk about the similarities. So we've acknowledged the differences because those differences you can see as plain as day. Right, so we can't ignore those. But we want to make sure that we also talk about all of the similarities because there are more similarities than there are differences. So we want to talk about those. And we want to make sure that we spend a good amount of time talking about those similarities so that our children realize that, okay, while I can see some differences on the outside, there's a lot more about us that is actually the same than different. Step number 3, talk about your achievements first. Now, what I mean when I say this is every culture, every race in this world has contributed to society. When I was in the Navy and I got to travel and I would talk to people, that were indigenous to wherever it was that we were at, I would just kind of ask. I was always curious about their schooling system and what type of history they learned and, all that good stuff. And I want to say it didn't necessarily amaze me, but it kind of did, because everyone learned about themselves first. So they knew about their history, they knew about their culture, they knew about what they contributed to society, they knew about the victories that they had, you know what I mean? And that just always kind of stuck out to me. So I would say for you, whoever you are, right? When you're talking to your child about race and you're talking to them about cultural differences and everything like that, make sure that you give them the knowledge of what it is that you as a person has contributed to society. Your ancestors, right? What have they contributed to society? How have your race of people or your group of people helped to make the world a better place? Share that with them first and start with that first. And the reason I say first is because, unfortunately, right, when you run into people who, for whatever reason, don't like you for whatever your race is, oftentimes they're going to point out the negative, right? I mean, not oftentimes, that's what it is. They're going to point out the negative. So you want to make sure that your child is equipped with, okay, all of the positive, all of the good, all of the things that we've done, that we've contributed, that make us unique. That's what you want to make sure that your child has. Step number 4, you want to make sure that you acknowledge and point out the achievements of others, right? So you don't want to just stop with everything that your culture or your race, or your group of people have contributed to this world. You want to make sure that you acknowledge that others have contributed as well, that we would not be who we are as a people, period, without the input from others. You know what I mean? So make sure you take the time to, and this could be good for you as well, to make sure you take the time to study and do a little research about the positive things that other people have contributed to the world. And you want to make sure you share that with your child as well. That way they don't think that they have a monopoly on all the good and everybody else didn't do anything. And my 5th and final point is teach respect. A lot of what I see happening today when we watch the news and we see what's going on is there's a lack of respect. And everybody has their idea of where the lack of respect is at, whether it's whatever side it's on. But what I really honestly have noticed is that there's a lack of respect in general across the board. And I'm not going to get into specific situations here, but we have to teach respect across the board. Right? So respect for ourselves and respect for other people, right? For whatever differences they have, whatever, that doesn't give me a right to disrespect them. And no one has a right to disrespect me either. So I'll kind of throw in a bonus tip with that. Along with teaching self-respect, we also need to make sure that we teach how to react if someone does disrespect you. Because I think a lot of times people are not prepared for someone else to disrespect them. And when you don't know how to handle being disrespected, right, it can manifest its way. It can manifest itself in some pretty ugly ways. So we need to teach respect, and then we need to teach, okay, how do you go about getting respect if someone is not giving you the respect that you feel like you deserve? So, those are my 5 tips with the bonus. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you find it useful. If you like this video, if you found it useful, if you think it's valuable, then don't be stingy. Share it, man. Tweet it, Facebook it, whatever you need to do. Let's get the word out. Also, go on, make sure you stop by www.askadaddy.com. Again, that's www.askadaddy.com. See what we have going on. Got some pretty good things going on. And yeah, remember, being a daddy is awesome.